They thought slapping a human cadet would be a lesson in humility. They didn't realize Earth was watching, and Earth doesn't forgive. Not slaps, not insults, not threats. The Galactic Concord Academy was hailed as the shining hope of peace among the stars, a massive citadel in low orbit over the neutral moon of Virex 9. Within its marble and steel walls trained the future diplomats, commanders, and elite guards of 35-member civilizations. And for the first time in history, humans were among them. Cadet First Class Adrian Holt stood stiffly at attention, the human flag on his shoulder, still a novelty to most of the species in the room. At 6'3", with a squared jaw and ice-blue eyes, he looked every inch the human soldier, disciplined, cold, and unreadable. Across from him stood Vierek Torvalis, heir of the Drekken hegemony. 7 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with iridescent skin like polished stone and gold-lined fangs. Royalty. Entitled. Dangerous. The two had clashed before, on the training grounds, in debate sessions, but this time was different. The room was full. Instructors, alien cadets, commandant observers. The session was supposed to be a diplomatic simulation on conflict resolution. Irony. Vierek stepped forward and sneered. You Earthlings talk of peace, but carry weapons in your veins. Adrian didn't flinch. Peace doesn't mean surrender. The Drekken noble hissed. Then submit to correction. Without warning, Vierek's open hand whipped across Adrian's face, a thunderclap of flesh on flesh that echoed through the chamber. Some gasped. Others smirked. One instructor started to speak, but stopped. Adrian didn't move. Blood traced down his lip. His jaw clenched. But he said nothing. He just turned his head back, slowly, to face Vierek. His voice was calm. Understood. That was it. No retaliation. No protest. Just that single, cold word. The instructors moved in. The exercise was called off. Vierek grinned and left, thinking he'd won, humiliated the upstart species in front of the entire academy. But Earth saw the feed. And Earth reacted. 3 days later, Vierek received a private message from the human dormitory sector. It was marked simply, open alone. He obeyed. Out of arrogance, curiosity, or perhaps a touch of unease. The holopad lit up with a grainy video. Adrian Holt stood in a training room, silent. Behind him, 20 other human cadets stood like statues. Adrian spoke slowly. The Drekken line believes strength is dominance. We believe strength is control. You drew blood. You will see what follows. Then the screen went black. Word spread fast. Not officially, but through whispers, rumors, and untraceable data leaks. The slap had gone viral among human military circles. There was no declaration of retaliation. No dramatic response. Just silence from Earth. And silence from Earth was dangerous. Within 2 days, human attendance at Academy combat demonstrations doubled. Instructors noted a shift. More humans were training. Longer hours. Harsher drills. Sharper precision. On the 6th day, Drekken cadets began to report strange occurrences. Systems glitching only in their quarters. Training schedules being swapped without their knowledge. Simulations rigged with human-specific parameters. By day 10, it was clear something was happening. Commandant Relassa, a feline-like administrator from the Valari Republic, summoned Adrian Holt privately. What are you doing? Adrian looked at her without blinking. Preparing. For what? Revenge. For consequences. We aren't like the others. Relassa narrowed her eyes. You were struck. You did not strike back. Not yet. The Drekken hegemony issued a formal statement. The incident was isolated. No further actions necessary. Earth's ambassador sent only a 5-word reply. We do not forget. Ever. 2 weeks later, during a live wargame simulation, the Drekken and human cadets were placed on opposing teams. Neutral species observed. So did high-ranking military officials from multiple planets. The Drekken side used brute force, heavy power armor, and standard tactics. Confident. Predictable. The humans? Stealth. Deception. Perfect formations. And Adrian Holt at the front, leading like a ghost. In 10 minutes, they neutralized the Drekken squad without a single simulated casualty. At the final moment, Adrian stood over a disarmed Vierek in the simulated battlefield and offered a hand. Vierek snarled. This doesn't change anything. Adrian whispered. It already has. That night, something extraordinary happened. The Martok coalition, long wary of Earth, issued a public commendation of human tactical brilliance. The Zanari Council, previously hesitant to grant Earth full voting rights in the Concord, reversed its decision. And the next morning, the Drekken military attaché sent an encrypted message to his homeworld. Recommendation: cease all antagonism toward Terran forces. They do not escalate loudly. They escalate completely. Back in his dormitory, Adrian looked at the mirror. The red mark on his cheek had faded. But he remembered. So did Earth. And the galaxy had just begun to understand what that meant. They thought it ended with a war game. They thought Earth's silence was mercy. But mercy was never part of the plan. The Galactic Bulletin hit every military channel at once. Earth had deployed the USS Devastator, a Dreadnought-class warship, into Concord space. Not for combat, but for joint training exercises. That was the official story. Everyone knew better. The Devastator was a symbol, not a tool. A monument of metal, fusion, and intent. Stationed in low orbit just beyond Virex 9, its presence sent a message louder than any declaration. In the academy halls, whispers turned to silence when human cadets walked by. Drekken trainees kept to their own wing, no longer boasting, no longer baiting. But Adrian Holt remained unshaken. Uncelebrated it. He didn't need celebration. He needed results. Behind the scenes, Earth had begun recalling multiple ambassadors, replacing them with military envoys. Across 3 systems, trade protocols were renegotiated with iron clauses. Earth was positioning, not posturing. VA-Rec Torvalis began to sense it too. He had assumed the slap was forgotten, an outburst, smoothed over with protocol. But now he saw the long shadow Earth cast, and the way every small tremor rippled across the galaxy. At night, he reviewed the slap video again, his hand hitting Adrian's face. The silence after. He hadn't realized it then, but now it haunted him. Within the academy, tension simmered. One morning, the Valari Commandant Relassa summoned all cadet leaders. The room pulsed with unease. This academy, she said, was built on unity. But unity cannot exist in fear. Earth must speak, openly. Adrian stood slowly. Then listened closely. He walked to the center. No notes. No hesitation. When I was struck, Earth didn't retaliate because we needed revenge. We waited to see how the galaxy would respond. And it did. With silence. With laughter. With observation. He glanced at VA-Rec, who shifted. We didn't answer with fists. We answered with excellence. We didn't demand justice. We became the reason it cannot be ignored again. A slow silence settled over the room. Then Adrian turned away. Meeting adjourned. The Drekken hegemony panicked. They dispatched envoys. They demanded meetings with Earth's high command. They proposed cultural exchanges. Human diplomats offered smiles. But behind those smiles were walls of fire. On the 15th day, a joint training op was held planetside. Cadets were to undergo rescue simulations under fire conditions. Drekken and human squads were paired. Adrian's squad was assigned via Rec as second-in-command. Tension ignited like a fuse. During the simulation, their shuttle crashed in hostile terrain. The objective: retrieve an injured asset and return. The Drekken cadets favored direct assault. Adrian had other plans. They moved silently, set traps, avoided unnecessary contact. Precision and patience. Midway through, VA-Rec broke ranks, attacking a drone prematurely. The trap triggered. Simulated explosives wounded 2 cadets. Adrian ran in, dragging them to cover. His voice cut through the chaos. Stick to the plan, Torvalis. VA-Rec growled. I do not take orders from. Adrian slammed him against a tree. Not with rage, but control. You're not taking orders from me. You're trying to get us killed. And humans don't die quietly. It was the first time VA-Rec didn't fight back. They finished the mission. Successful extraction. No fatalities. Later that night, VA-Rec arrived at Adrian's dorm. He stood silently before speaking. I was wrong. About your kind. Adrian nodded. Most are. VA-Rec looked down. When I slapped you, I thought it would prove superiority. Adrian met his gaze. It proved something. Just not what you hoped. VA-Rec turned to leave, but stopped. You didn't hit me back. Adrian's voice was quiet. Because I wasn't aiming for your face. From orbit, the Devastator sent a pulse transmission. Encrypted. Targeted. Received by every Drekken military vessel within the sector. It said, 1 strike. 1 silence. One shift. Never again. VA Rec turned to leave, but Adrian's final words froze him in place. Because you haven't seen what a human strike looks like yet. VA Rec didn't respond. He couldn't. Something in Adrian's tone, level, unshaken, pierced deeper than any blade could. For the first time since joining the academy, the Draconair walked away from a confrontation not in triumph, but in silence. The next morning, the campus changed. The Academy Council announced a full-scale, interspecies tactical challenge, the Pinnacle Trial, a month-long wargame simulation with full oversight from Concord military brass. A test of leadership, unity, and strategic excellence. Every major species would field a mixed team. And, for the first time, Earth was not just allowed to participate, they were invited to lead. It wasn't a coincidence. The trial was more than a test. It was a political maneuver, an attempt to defuse tension, distract from the whisper war brewing beneath the surface of the slap. But no one fooled themselves. Everyone knew this was Earth's proving ground. Adrian Holt was selected as the human squad captain. VA Rec Torvalis, after several high-level requests from his people, was placed on Adrian's team. The council said it was for interpersonal development. Adrian knew it was a test. The teams assembled in the hangar bay. 20 cadets from 10 species, each with their own armor style, weapon preference, and cultural code. And yet, when Adrian stepped onto the platform, everyone straightened. Not out of fear, but out of gravity. The human carried weight now. A quiet, relentless gravity that pulled the galaxy toward a new understanding. Briefing in 10, Adrian said calmly. And leave your ego outside. It doesn't survive in a fire zone. They listened. Even VA Rec. The trial's opening scenario dropped the cadets into a simulated conflict zone on a remote jungle world. Thick canopies blocked satellite scans. Pheromone-based wildlife disrupted sensory gear. The objective was simple: locate and extract a high-value asset before enemy AI forces converged. Adrian didn't waste time. 3 squads, he ordered. Recon, support, and assault. VA Rec, you're with me on recon. VA Rec frowned. You don't trust me on the front? I trust you where you can't break formation. There was no anger in Adrian's voice. Just strategy. Their squad moved through the simulated jungle like a whisper. Humans led the movement, but they didn't dominate. They guided, integrated, coordinated. Adrian issued commands with clockwork calm, adapting to every terrain shift, every sensor ping. Within an hour, they had the target's last known position triangulated. Enemy drones patrolled in search patterns. Traps laced the ground with subsonic mines. The team froze when they encountered a Draken-class warbot blocking the extraction path. Suggestions? Adrian asked. A Valari cadet raised her hand. Retreat and reroute. Avoid confrontation. A Martok clicked his mandibles. Bait and smash. Let it follow us to a kill zone. Adrian turned to VA Rec. You? The Draken Prince hesitated. Send me in. I can withstand more damage than most. I'll distract it. You flank. Adrian stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Try not to die. VA Rec grinned, teeth bared. No promises. He charged, letting out a primal roar. The warbot turned, sensors flashing. Before it could lock weapons, VA Rec slammed into its side. Claws scraping armor, brute strength forcing its balance off. At that exact moment, Adrian signaled his team forward. Precision fire hit joints, optics, power vents. The bot went down in 8 seconds. The team moved forward. Extraction secured. Mission complete. But this was only the first trial. The simulations escalated in complexity. Urban warfare in zero gravity. Night assaults in methane fog. Underwater infiltration through hostile alien ruins. And each time, Adrian led not just with orders, but with vision. He adapted alien cadets to human methods without crushing their instincts. He pushed his squad beyond standard drills. There were no lectures, no arrogance, just clarity. But while their successes piled up, whispers grew louder outside the simulation walls. Because every victory, every flawless maneuver, every rescue mission that Adrian's squad completed with 0 casualties, it didn't just reflect well on Earth. It frightened people. Human cadets stopped being newcomers. They became something else. A standard. A shadow that loomed over other delegations. And some wanted that shadow removed. 2 nights before the final trial, Adrian sat alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Footsteps approached. Relassa, the feline Valari commandant, joined him. "You've won the council's attention," she said, and their unease. Adrian didn't look away from the stars. That wasn't the goal. "No," she purred. But it was inevitable. Silence stretched between them before she continued. "You know the final trial will be different. I expect sabotage," Adrian said bluntly. "Maybe even betrayal. It won't matter." She raised a brow. "You're that confident?" "I'm not confident," he said. "I'm prepared." Then he stood and walked away. The final trial came. It was designed to be chaos. Multiple teams, limited resources, shifting objectives, and a hidden traitor within one squad. A new twist announced by the council to simulate real wartime uncertainty. It was a cruel test, but it was human history. Earth had been forged in betrayal and unpredictability, and that made them perfect for this trial. Adrian gathered his squad. "We're not reacting," he said. "We're predicting. We know someone in one of the teams will turn. That's not a threat, it's an opportunity. We draw them out. We learn their patterns. And then we use them." "But how?" asked a Zanari cadet. Adrian smiled faintly. "We do what humans do best. We let them underestimate us." The trial began. They hit the ground in a shattered canyon, under constant simulated orbital fire. Signals jammed. Gear glitched. Teams scattered. Most panicked. Adrian's team vanished. Not ran. Vanished. He'd prepared them for this. No light. No noise. Movement only in threes. They weren't soldiers. They were shadows. And one by one, they found the other teams. Not to fight. To observe. To bait. And in one team, Adrian saw it. The hesitation, the strange positioning, the repeated excuses to split formations. He found the traitor. It was a Drekken cadet. Not VA Rec, but one from a rival squad, who had been planted to sabotage Earth's team from within if reassigned mid-trial. Adrian acted before the reassignment could occur. He trapped the traitor in a dead-end pass. And he gave him one choice: surrender and walk out with honor, or stay and be exposed. The cadet lunged. Adrian moved faster. 3 strikes. Non-lethal. Tactical. The Drekken went down. Simulated med teams arrived moments later. The traitor was removed. Quietly. The council hoped to hide the embarrassment. But every cadet knew what had happened, and who had uncovered it. Adrian's team completed the trial with a perfect score. They didn't lose a single member. And when the final rankings were announced, the council made an unprecedented move. They didn't just name Earth's team the winner. They elevated Earth's military to primary advisory status within the Concord Cadet program. Over Drekken protests. Over Zanari complaints. Because results didn't lie. But VA Rec said something more important. He said it in front of the entire cadet assembly. He stood tall. Voice firm. "When I struck Adrian Holt, I believed I was showing strength. What I was really doing was waking a sleeping giant." Then he turned to Adrian. "And I am honored to have served under him." Adrian didn't reply. He just nodded. 2 days later, the USS Devastator departed orbit. Not because Earth was done watching, but because it no longer needed to. The message had been delivered. Without war. Without a shot. Just a slap. And everything that followed. To the rest of the galaxy, that slap was a moment of drama. To humanity, it was a trigger. And the Concord would never forget that when a human doesn't strike back, it's only because the strike coming next is not a response. It's an end. The trial was over. The applause had faded. But the consequences hadn't. Earth's cadets were now legends among the Concord academies, admired by some, envied by most, and feared by the powerful. Human tacticians began receiving offers for joint drills. Their war simulations were downloaded across 5 major military academies. Even the Zanari, known for their disdain of brute strategy, requested to study Earth's battlefield psychology. And yet, beneath all this praise, something else stirred. Something older. Darker. The Drekken High Command didn't take the embarrassment lightly. VA Rec's public respect for Adrian had cost his family political capital. His decision to praise a human instead of defending Drekken pride had ignited a quiet firestorm back home. And now, rumors began surfacing of private war councils, of silent mobilizations, of corrections being planned. Adrian knew this wasn't over. Because the galaxy wasn't afraid of Earth's soldiers yet. It was afraid of what they were becoming. The Academy organized a diplomatic banquet, an attempt to smooth over tensions. A celebration of unity, peace, progress. But it was a performance. Adrian walked the marble halls in his formal uniform, each polished metal drawing the gaze of officers and ambassadors alike. Everywhere he went, whispers followed. That's the human. The one who dismantled the Drekken bot in 8 seconds. Careful. He doesn't raise his voice, but you never forget what follows. Adrian stood at the edge of the hall, sipping synth wine, eyes scanning the crowd, not as a guest, but as a soldier. Still uncomfortable in suits, Captain? VA Rex stepped beside him, no longer in Academy blues. Now he wore the ceremonial armor of a Drekken diplomat, but Adrian saw the subtle lines of weapon plating beneath. You came armed to a banquet? VA Rex smiled faintly. Do you consider this a safe room? Adrian didn't answer. Because it wasn't. Not anymore. Not since Earth proved it could lead. Not since fear became the galaxy's new currency. Midway through the event, a sudden silence fell. The crowd parted. A figure entered. Tall. Clad in black Drekken elite uniform. Not a cadet. Not an ambassador. A war elector. They only appeared on the battlefield, or to deliver a message. Adrian set his glass down and stood taller. The Drekken's voice was like stone cracking. You've earned attention, human. But attention draws consequences. And Earth has forgotten its place. The room tightened. Security began to move, slowly, carefully. Adrian stepped forward. I didn't realize standing tall meant we moved. The war elector's eyes burned. The slap was a symbol. You should have worn the bruise quietly. But now, the uniform has memory. Adrian's voice dropped an octave. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. And when a human uniform remembers, it doesn't forgive. That's when the elector smiled and spoke into his communicator. The lights cut out. Screams followed. Gunfire. Gas. The banquet was a setup. Adrian's body moved before his mind caught up. He grabbed Vierek by the armor, yanked him behind a reinforced column, and drew a concealed plasma sidearm from his waist. Red bolts sliced through the air. Synth glass shattered. Alien ambassadors scrambled, tripping over ceremonial robes and panic. Adrian barked orders into his comms. Echo 1, regroup at South Quadrant. Protect dignitaries. Copy. En route. The war elector didn't flinch. He marched straight through the chaos, firing a twin-core bolt cannon that vaporized half a wall. Adrian leapt, rolled, and flanked behind a stone arch. His pistol hummed once, 2 shots, rapid, non-lethal charge. 1 Drekken attacker dropped. A second turned, too slow. VA Rek launched forward, grabbing the enemy by the throat and slamming him into the floor with a sickening crunch. Still think we're cadets? VA Rek growled. Adrian pulled a smoke capsule from his belt and lobbed it into the main corridor. The cloud spread fast, dense, blue, ion-reactive. Human tech. Rare. Illegal in some sectors. He activated the tracker implant in his glove. Team Delta, initiate fallback protocol. All dignitaries to evac shuttles. They'll be cut off, Vierek warned. They'll make it, Adrian said. Because I'm not the one being hunted anymore. Adrian didn't run. He advanced. Through chaos. Through flame. Each step calculated. Each bolt fired with surgical precision. The war elector finally turned. The 2 locked eyes across the hall. No crowd. No noise. Just 2 soldiers. Adrian drew his second sidearm. You picked the wrong symbol, he said. You picked the wrong century, the elector replied. Then they moved. No more distractions. No more diplomacy. Just war. The fight lasted 47 seconds. Longer than most humans could survive. Longer than most Drekken expected Adrian to last. But when it ended, only Adrian stood. His uniform scorched. His cheek cut. But his hand steady. The war elector lay unconscious, restrained, weapon removed, recorded, and live-streamed through Adrian's own visor feed. Every cadet, officer, and soldier who still questioned Earth's place now watched it unfold, not in words, but in footage. Later that night, as cleanup began, the Concord Council convened an emergency session. Earth's delegate didn't beg for justice. They demanded answers, and received silence, until VA Rex stepped forward, again choosing a side. Humanity did not start this, but you keep provoking them. One day, they won't respond with precision. They'll respond with finality. Silence reigned. And then the Zanari matriarch spoke. She's right. The matriarch said, nodding toward Adrian. He didn't escalate. He ended it. Earth was no longer a junior species. It was a balancing force, a threat, a warning, and a promise. Back in his quarters, Adrian sat down slowly, removed his uniform, and ran a cloth over the torn fabric. Blood, smoke, dust. He didn't clean it. He folded it and placed it in a sealed case labeled First Contact, Phase 2. He looked at the mirror, not for vanity, but for memory. You made one human bleed, he whispered. And now the uniform remembers. 3 days after the banquet ambush, everything changed. No declarations. No war drums. Just movement. Silent. Strategic. Absolute. Earth's military stopped asking for a seat. They drew their own table. Not out of arrogance, but necessity. Adrian Voss stood at the center of an orbital operations platform above Concord Prime, flanked by generals, analysts, and silent drones scanning every light year of contested space. His face was tight, not angry, not proud, focused. A Drekken war elector had just attempted an assassination during a diplomatic summit. Most species would have demanded trials, peace talks, or sanctions. Humans didn't. They initiated Operation Iron Thread. Every human battle group, NATO, UGF, SEA, Mars Command, coordinated under one unified doctrine for the first time in galactic history. Contain, disable, and remind. They weren't planning a war. They were planning a demonstration. Elsewhere, panic spread through the Drekken High fleets. Dozens of Drekken patrol ships disappeared overnight, jammed, pulled from drift space, and relocated to uninhabited systems. Not destroyed, not harmed, just removed from the board. Confused officers found their warships disabled by nanite infiltration, engines cold, and all internal comms replaced by one eerie, looping message. You bled one soldier. We mobilized an entire species. One Drekken general, Sorgultven, smashed a comms panel in frustration. This is impossible. We outnumber them 2-1 in heavy tonnage. His aide whispered, with respect, sir, that didn't help the last 10 captains. It only made them easier to find. Sorgul froze. He knew what the humans were doing. They were disqualifying fear, turning Drekken advantage into irrelevance, teaching the galaxy to count differently. Not ships, not weapons. Intent. Back on Concord Prime, the council scrambled. The humans are pushing boundaries, protested a Telnari stateswoman. They've detained over 30 Drekken vessels without due process. They haven't fired a single lethal shot, countered the Zanari matriarch. They've done more to de-escalate through precision than we've achieved in centuries of negotiation. They're hacking borders, someone cried. They're drawing lines, Adrian's voice rang out. He stepped forward. Calm, cold, measured. We asked for respect. You offered us bruises. You slapped one of our soldiers and expected silence. What you received was strategy. A silent pause. Adrian raised his hand and activated the holo display behind him. It showed a Drekken fleet, locked in orbit, ships powerless, crews safe, but stunned. No fatalities, he said. No invasions. No blood. He stepped closer. Just clarity. Then he left the room. Because humans didn't need applause anymore. They had attention. Far from politics, inside the intelligence chambers of Earth's Shadow Division, the Echo Core, more startling updates emerged. The war elector from the banquet? Alive. Interrogated. And shockingly cooperative. Adrian sat across from him in a cold cell, separated by a transparent energy screen. You didn't come to kill me, Adrian said. No, the elector replied, calmly. I came to trigger you. Adrian frowned. Why? The elector smirked. Because something is coming. And we needed to see if humans would hesitate. Adrian leaned forward. So you used us? No, the elector corrected. We warned you. The Drekken High Command? They're no longer in full control. Something darker's guiding them. Something ancient. The slap wasn't an insult. It was a key. Adrian narrowed his eyes. The elector continued. Watch the stars, human. The ones going quiet. Ask your deep radar teams why entire sectors have stopped emitting signals. Then ask yourself if you're ready for what's next. Silence. Then the elector leaned in. Because you're no longer just soldiers. You're a signal. 12 hours later, Adrian stood in Earth's orbital command vault, surrounded by humanity's top minds. Admirals, technologists, xenolinguists, strategists. We've intercepted transmissions, said Admiral Wren. Star Sector Delta, 12 went dark last week. No comms. No drifters. Nothing. And Adrian asked. Rin swallowed. Alien signals we recovered show a pattern. Not random. Deliberate erasure. Whole systems deleted from the relay nets. Whoever's doing this doesn't want witnesses. Adrian's heart pounded. And the Drekken? Rin sighed. They're scared, but too proud to admit it. Adrian stared at the map, then issued 3 commands. 1. Deploy stealth scouts to Delta 12. 2. Ready first contact emergency protocol Nemesis. 3. Call for Earth's silent fleet. The vessel's not listed in any galactic registry. If something ancient was coming, it wouldn't slap. It would consume. And this time, Adrian wouldn't be reacting. He'd be waiting. But before humanity could face a larger threat, they had to finish the current one. Operation Iron Thread entered Phase 2. This time, Earth didn't isolate ships. They entered Drekken territory. Openly. 1 human vessel per fleet. Unarmed. Just 1 ship, broadcasting a single message on loop. We are here to return the slap. Politely. Some Drekken commanders panicked. Some stood down. 1 tried to attack. That fleet never returned. But not because Earth destroyed it. No. They let the fleet reach their hidden outpost, only to find it emptied the night before. Every asset gone. Every drone, data node, and weapon evacuated in perfect silence. And in the center of the facility, a Drekken officer's uniform. Folded. Tagged. Slapped once across the cheek by a robotic hand. No words. Just memory. The slap was remembered and repaid. Adrian sat alone in his quarters that night, watching the stars. He sipped bitter coffee from a metal mug with a dent in the side, the same one he used during his first Academy deployment. He thought of Cadet Rin from Zetha Prime, who once called humans soft. He remembered her expression during the war sim. She'd transferred academies, requested to train under human tactics, so had hundreds of others. Not out of admiration, out of survival. They'd seen the math, the logic, the resolve. He set the mug down. Outside, Earth's first Dreadnought-class stealth carrier drifted past. A whisper among planets. Named not for war, but for memory. HSS Sentinel. 1 final message arrived before the day ended. From VA Rec. Encrypted. Short. I'm returning home. My people don't understand your restraint. They fear your memory. And I need to know what you'll do when the next slap comes. Adrian replied hours later. We won't flinch. We'll write it down. And we'll make sure the galaxy never forgets. And somewhere, deep beyond the galactic veil, something watched. Something old. It had watched the slap. It had watched the reply. And it had made a decision. Earth was no longer a child among stars. It was a signal, a storm, a question. And the stars were starting to whisper. What happens when the humans stop replying with warnings? The galaxy held its breath. Across star systems, battleships hovered in standby mode. Academies canceled drills. Diplomats stalled trade negotiations. Everyone waited, not for the next strike, but for humanity's final word. Because the slap had been answered. Now the question was, would humanity stop there? No one knew, not even the humans. In the orbital fortress surrounding Concord Prime, Adrian Voss sat in the observation chamber, watching the playback of Earth's stealth fleet missions. Every Drekken patrol rerouted. Every assault ship neutralized without a single fatality, his assistant reported. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He was watching something deeper. Zoomed in. Enhanced. Slowed frame by frame. He wasn't looking at the ships. He was watching the faces of Drekken captains after their defeat. The expressions. Confusion. Shame. Fear. And behind that, something else. Recognition. They finally understood. Humanity wasn't unpredictable. Humanity was calculating. And now, someone else was watching them just as closely. The shadows beyond the Drekken border weren't empty anymore. We're not alone, Adrian murmured. No, whispered Via Rec from behind him. And I don't think we've ever been. In the span of 1 week, 5 unaligned systems went silent. Not destroyed. Not conquered. Just gone. No signals. No trade. No distress beacons. Like someone had closed a door between galaxies. Adrian stood in Earth's top war room, surrounded by military AI and high-level diplomats. Contact Protocol Nemesis has triggered, Admiral Rin confirmed. Images flickered on the screen, star charts dimmed where systems had once glowed. Human probes launched 2 weeks earlier now returned fragmented footage. No life. Just charred moons. and strange markings on asteroid belts, symbols no one recognized. Until VA Rec gasped. I've seen this before. Everyone turned. She stepped forward and pointed at the symbol. It's ancient, pre-galactic unity. Before the Council. Before Drekken empires. She tapped the symbol again. It means silence by devotion. It's not military. It's religious. Adrian leaned in. Meaning what? VA Rec's eyes darkened. Someone isn't conquering. They're purging. And then the message came. Not broadcasted. Not declared. Carved. Into the hull of Earth's first-generation listening station near the Kai border. Fused into the titanium with nanoplasmic fire. 5 words. You speak too much, primates. The entire council lost its mind. Half demanded Earth stand down to avoid further provocation. The other half asked for Earth's help in preparing for what was coming. Adrian issued a single statement to both sides. The slap was the mistake. Our silence after it was the warning. And so humanity prepared. Not for war. For revelation. The next Drekken move didn't come on the battlefield. It came in the form of a broadcast. A public apology. The Drekken War elector who had slapped the human soldier, Bryn Toll, spoke from confinement. I believed humanity needed to be tested. That your species would shatter under insult. I was wrong. He paused, and his voice wavered. I slapped a soldier. You responded without vengeance. You paralyzed our fleets, captured our honor, and forced us to look inward. A Drekken publicly expressing remorse? Unheard of. Adrian didn't react on camera, but the human soldier who was slapped, Private Hayes, did. Standing beside Adrian in full uniform, he gave a nod. I was hit. I didn't hit back. My species did. And the galaxy finally understood something chilling. Every human soldier is backed by a species that never forgets. Meanwhile, from the edge of the dark zone, the probes returned one final video before being obliterated. A fleet. Massive. Not metallic like traditional warships, but grown. Living vessels. Silent. Pulsing with eerie blue light. No bridges. No windows. Only one symbol repeated across each ship's hull. The same one from the asteroid belt. Silence by devotion. Earth classified the images immediately, but they couldn't stop the whispers. Entire sectors began evacuating. Drekken warlords begged Earth for alliance pacts. Old enemies from past skirmishes offered territory, tech, even sovereignty, if only humanity would protect them. Why? Because humans had done the unthinkable. They slapped back once, and never again. That restraint terrified everyone. Because now, no one knew how far they'd go next. A week later, Adrian stood on the deck of the HSS Sentinel. The flagship. The signal. Earth's answer to silence. VA Rec joined him. Dressed not in robes of diplomacy, but in light combat armor. You're coming? Adrian asked. She nodded. My people don't believe in your cause yet. But I've seen what you've built. I want to understand it, truly. Adrian turned toward the front viewport. Ahead, the dark zone loomed. No light. No sound. Only the unknown. Ready the fleet, he said. The Sentinel wasn't going to strike. It was going to ask a question. And humanity was ready for the answer, whatever it was. Back on Earth, broadcasts played the moment Adrian's fleet crossed into the unknown. The narrator was a human child. Her voice soft. Untrained. Honest. They hurt us once. We didn't destroy them. We showed them who we are. Now, we're going to meet the thing that scares even our enemies. The feed ended with the Earth insignia. A single outstretched hand. Open. Not clenched. But capable of both. And the galaxy watched. And waited. Inside the dark zone, humanity finally saw them. The architects. Or rather, their machines. Massive organisms wrapped in silence. Drifting with purpose. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. But one ship broke formation and approached the Sentinel. Adrian's crew readied for anything. Then a message appeared on every terminal, every panel, every helmet HUD. Not words. Not sound. Just one image. A human child. Crying. Alone. In a war zone. And the words beneath it. We saw what you protect. We will not interfere. No war. No invasion. Just recognition. The architects drifted away, leaving a final pulse through space. To be remembered. And Adrian knew what it meant. The slap wasn't just an insult to one human. It was a signal to the real powers of the universe. That humanity protects its own. And that's all the architects needed to see. When the fleet returned, Earth said nothing. No speeches. No fireworks. Just a new phrase etched into the memory walls at the Academy of Interstellar Defense. He slapped a human soldier. What happened next reminded the stars why we're not to be underestimated. And below it, smaller text. Some species use violence to prove dominance. We used patience to prove power. Adrian returned to civilian life months later. Private Hayes got promoted and quietly retired to a teaching post. VA Rex stayed on Earth, helping translate ancient alien texts, including the full gospel of silence by devotion. It ended with a warning. The loudest empires burn brightest. The quiet ones become legends. And now, thanks to a single slap, humanity had joined the ladder.